experiment. Interference in light waves from two sources was first demonstrated by Thomas Young in 1801. A schematic diagram of the experimental setup is shown here. Light was made to pass through a slit, SO. The waves emerging from this slit was made to pass through two parallel slits, S1 and S2. These two slits served as a pair of coherent light sources because waves emerging from them originate from the same wave front and therefore maintain a constant phase relationship. Thomas Young observed that the light from S1 and S2 produced on the viewing screen a visible pattern of bright and dark parallel bands called fringes. What causes bright and dark fringes? A bright fringe appears if the light emerging from S1 and S2 interfere constructively, and a dark fringe appears if the light from the two slits combine destructively at any location on the screen.
Well, if light were behaving as particles, you would expect them to go through each slit and just produce a bright spot underneath. So we would see two bright spots on the bottom of the box. But if light's behaving as waves, then the wave from one slit can interact with the waves from the other slit. I've got a demonstration here on a little pond where we can see this with water waves. I have two sources of ripples, which are basically like the two slits. When I create ripples with a single source, they travel out with circular wavefronts. Nothing particularly surprising there. But if I add a second source of ripples, then we start getting an interesting pattern. This pattern is created by the ripples from the two sources interacting with each other. Where they meet up peaks with peaks and troughs with troughs, the amplitude of the wave is increased. That's what we call constructive interference. But if the peak from one wave meets up with the trough from the other, then we get destructive interference and there's basically no wave there. And this is exactly what was happening with the light. When the light from one slit met up peaks with peaks and troughs with troughs, they constructively interfered and produced a bright spot. But if the trough from the wave from one slit met up with the peak of the wave from the other slit, they would destructively interfere and you wouldn't see any light there. It's light